Hello. In this tutorial we're going to cover migrating the Action RPG inventory system into the multiplayer top-down kit. This tutorial assumes that you have already migrated the content folder from your inventory project into your new multiplayer top-down project. After migrating the folder, I would suggest deleting the intermediate and saved folders before you begin. First, we'll go ahead and move the Blueprints Components folder from the inventory system into your MP top-down kit. When migrating these files, you'll see this error. Just click OK and continue. And you should get this error saying that it failed to save the inventory player controller. What you want to do is go into the inventory player controller and just simply compile and save it. And then go into your components, the inventory component, equipment inventory component, and inventory manager component, and compile and resave them. Now let's go into the MP top-down network controller and we'll add the equipment inventory component. And let's rename that to player inventory component. And then we will add the inventory manager component. Then we can compile, save, and close this. Now let's go into the inventory system blueprints usables folder and rename the usable actor to usable actor old. Because the top-down kit has the same usable actor system, we're simply going to reparent the content that we need from the inventory system. So let's go into usable actor old to the class settings, and we need to remove the usable actor interface and click yes to transfer the interface function. Just compile and save it and close it. And since we have a door already in the top-down kit, we can simply delete this, replace it with the other door actor. Okay, now if we go into the world actor, we want to reparent it to the usable actor from the top-down kit. Let's go ahead and compile and save it. And let's just close it and reopen it. Now if we look at the class settings, we can see that we're inheriting the interactable interface. So let's go ahead and override the onUsed function. And now we can copy the onActorUsed, which is the interface from the inventory system, and we can put it into the onUsed, which is the interface for the top-down kit. Okay, next we need to replace the cast. So instead of inventory player controller, we need to cast to MP top-down network controller. And we need to get the inventory manager component. And the player inventory component. Okay, we need to delete the old onActorUsed since we're not using that function anymore. So we'll just compile and save it. Next, we have to change the collision presets. So what you want to do is change custom to usable. This allows us to click it. And now we want to set it back to custom and change the pawn to overlap. This allows it so the player can walk through it. So it doesn't block the player. Now let's open the container actor, and we'll be pretty much doing the same thing. Change the parent class to usable actor. Compile and save it. We'll just reopen it. Okay, we see again we're inheriting the interactable interface. Now we can override the onUsed function, and then we want to cut and paste this old onActorUsed logic into the new onUsed function. We'll just cast to MP TopDown network controller. We can plug right into the player state, and then we need to get the inventory manager component again. Okay, delete onActorUsed function. Let's go into container looted, and we need to update this cast node here. So anywhere in the project where you see cast to inventory player controller, we're going to need to change this to cast to top-down network controller. Okay, let's get the inventory manager component. Okay, now let's go into the static mesh and update the collision. So let's set it to usable. And now in this case, we want to keep it as usable. That way it's just got the defaults and it blocks the player. So now let's go into container pot, which is a child of the container actor. Let's update its collision to usable. Okay, let's open up loot actor. A static mesh, then we'll set it back to custom and check pawn to overlap. Now let's open up loot hero, just check the collision here. Okay, set that to usable, and again custom and overlap pawn, this way you can walk through it. Go into loot skeleton, same thing. Change the collision to usable, back to custom, and then select pawn overlap. Compile and save. Okay, it looks like we're finished with the usables, so let's go ahead and select them all except for usable actor old, and we'll move them into the top-down kit blueprints usables folder. Okay, now let's go into the components inventory manager component. We're going to have an error. So we just need to pull off the spawn actor world actor, get static mesh, and then rehook it up. And this error is because we've reparented it, so it's got a different reference signature for the variable. Okay, compile and save it. So now let's go ahead and close the project here, save everything. This is a good point to sort of make a quick backup. Now after reloading the project, we want to fix up redirectors in folder. Okay, now let's move the equipment character into the top-down kit blueprints characters folder. And we're going to need to reparent the player character to the equipment character and the equipment character to the base character. So let's go ahead into the class settings and reparent this to the base character. Compile and save. Now let's open the player character, go into the class settings, and we'll reparent it to the equipment character. And compile and save. Okay, now let's go into the equipment character again, and we'll update the skeletal mesh to use the SK mannequin from the top-down kit. We'll save all. Now let's go into the environment, meshes, and dead hero, and let's just point the textures to the mannequin textures from the top-down kit. And let's go into the inventory system animations, delete the third-person anim blueprint, and replace the reference with the third-person anim blueprint from the top-down kit. Save everything. Now we can delete these animations. Let's go into the character folder, mesh, and let's delete the SK mannequin skeleton and replace it with the one from the top-down kit. Go ahead and delete the SK mannequin, replace it with the top-down kit one, and we'll delete the physics asset. Now we can go ahead and we can delete everything in the character folder here in the inventory system. Don't worry about the folder still showing, we'll clean that up after. Now let's go into the environment meshes and we can remove the static mesh door because we already have it. Let's go into the textures and we need to replace these wood textures with the ones from the top-down kit. So we'll replace the diffuse. Then we'll replace the wood planks metal. And finally, the wood planks normal. Now if we go into the environment materials, we can replace the wood planks material with the one from the top-down kit. And now that we've replaced all the duplicate content, we can start moving the materials into the top-down kit environment materials folder. Let's move all the meshes. And the textures. Now let's go ahead and move the entire items folder. This might take a little bit. Okay, we'll save all. Let's go ahead and close the project. We'll do another quick little backup here. And again, closing the project helps remove anything in memory in the editor. Since we're moving a lot of stuff around, it helps. So then we'll go and fix up redirectors and folder. This should clean up our old references from the old locations. Now we can go through and we can delete the environment folder, the items folder, and the animations folder. And you may or may not see a character folder. If you do, you can delete it. Okay, next let's move the Blueprints inventory folder into the top-down kit blueprints. Then we'll just fix up redirectors again. Now if we go into the UI, let's delete the player icon and replace it with the one from the top-down kit. And let's do the same with the UI square. Now if we go into the top-down kit UI HUD layout, let's go to user created and we will add in the inventory layout. Now let's make sure the variable is called inventory. We're going to full anchor it and just zero out the offsets. Now let's go back into the MP top-down network controller and we'll add a new variable called isMouseOverUI. That's a bool. We'll compile and save. Now let's minimize that and we'll go back into the inventory system, blueprints, inventory player controller. And we want to select the inputs for opening and closing the windows as well as the hotbar slots. So we'll just copy that. Go back into the MP top-down network controller and paste. Compile and save. Let's go back into the inventory player controller. And we want to grab the code here to close the container. We'll copy that and we'll put it just after the move to location, client show mouse click. There, now when we try to click to move, it will close an open container. Compile and save. Now we'll go back into the inventory player controller, into the initialize player function, and we'll get the server initialize inventory code. We'll get the server init inventory. If you want to migrate the example for loading equipment, you can go ahead and do that as well. Okay, and select the init inventory manager UI, copy and let's paste it back into the MP top-down network controller. Okay, so we'll want to call this after the client update player frames. We'll just replace the HUD reference. We'll get the inventory variable. Okay, now the server initialize inventory, this has to be called before you call the client inventory UI that we just worked with. Let's replace the character reference. Okay, let's hook that up. Now we actually want this to be called after respawn player. So we'll just move this out of the way. Make a bit more room. And let's move the client on respawn event to after we initialize the inventory. Okay, now when you respawn and you create a new character, it should set up the right character reference and reinitialize your inventory. Although you may want to have the initialize inventory manager and server init inventory up above at the server init player, and keep the set equipment character reference before the client on respawn down here. It really depends on your game setup. Compile and save. And now we can close these. Let's fix up redirectors in the main content folder. And let's close the project and do a quick backup. Okay, let's go into the MP TopDown Kit Blueprints, into the Components folder, and open the Inventory Manager component. Let's replace the cast2s for Inventory Player Controller. So we'll do a quick search for cast to inventory. In the use consumable item, this is called when you use a food item in your inventory. It just calls a function in your player controller to set your health. We're not going to migrate that here, so we're just going to remove this because our MP top-down network controller doesn't have this function. But you can go ahead and do this yourself quite easily. So we'll compile and save. Now we'll go into the set viewers container slot and we'll replace this cast2 reference. We'll get the inventory manager component. Go into the clear viewers container slot and replace the cast to inventory player controller reference. We'll get the inventory manager component. Okay, compile, save, and close. Okay, now let's go into the Inventory System UI folder, into the Blueprints, Inventory Layout, and we're just going to go through and start updating the cast2 controller references here. So let's get the MP top-down network controller, then we'll get the Inventory Manager component and hook that up, remove the old stuff. Compile and save. Now into the inventory folder, we'll go ahead and do the same for the widgets here. So let's go into the container, update the variable reference to MP top-down network controller. Delete the old reference. We'll get the inventory manager component and rehook that up. And let's pull off the controller reference, set mouse over UI, delete the old ones. Then let's select these and copy them so we can paste them later. Compile and save. Then we'll go into container slot, go into the event graph. Let's update the controller reference. Again, cast to the MP top-down network controller. We'll be doing this a few more times here. Let's get the inventory manager component. Compile and save. Okay, we need to get the is shift key down from the controller. And then we need to grab it again here. Let's go into the equipment widget. Change the controller reference again. We'll cast to the new controller. Get the inventory manager component. Compile and save. Okay, sorry, we need to paste in the Ismos over UI and hook that up. Let's compile and save and close it. We'll go into the hotbar slot. We'll change the reference. Okay, and we'll get the inventory manager component, set that reference. Compile and save, close it. Okay, let's go into the inventory widget. We'll change the controller reference again. Get the inventory manager component. Let's delete the Ismos over UI, paste in the new ones. Compile. Okay, we need to pull off the controller and get inventory manager component. Then we can plug it into the gold, delete the old one, compile, save, and close. Go to the inventory slot, go to the event graph. Let's replace the controller reference. We'll get the inventory manager component. Okay, let's set up the is shift key down. Okay, get his shift key down again. Now let's compile, save, and close. Okay, great, that's the UI done. So let's fix up redirectors. Let's go into the UI blueprints, and we want to move these into the top-down kit UI blueprints folder. Let's see, we just need inventory layout and drag widget, so we'll move that into the top-down kit UI. Then let's grab the inventory folder and drag that into the UI blueprints folder. Okay, and let's grab all the textures and move them into the UI textures folder. Okay, so now we just have the demo content left that we don't need. So let's close. We'll do another quick backup here. We'll fix up redirectors. Now let's hit play and give it a quick test. Okay, we're in the menu map, so let's go and change to the example map. Let's just change this in our settings here. Maps and modes, editor startup map, MP top-down example map. Perfect. Okay, now we're getting an error. So this may or may not happen. It's just, sometimes something gets bugged out. Okay, it looks like it can't find hotbar. But the hotbar is in our inventory layout. So let's take a look at the UI. So if we look in the HUD layout, we have our inventory layout, that's fine, but it's missing the hotbar. So we'll go into our inventory layout, and for some reason the widget hotbar is missing. So again, sometimes weird things happen with Unreal. So let's just pull in a new hotbar. We'll try and name it hotbar, but we can't because it says an existing object is named that. So let's go ahead and compile, and that should fix any weird reference that it seems to have stuck in memory. Now let's name it back to hotbar, compile and save. Now if we go back into the components inventory manager component, okay, the error is gone. So again, you might run into something like that, you may not. It just really depends on how Unreal's feeling at the time. Okay, so we're trying it out. Our character's T-pose, that's easy. That's just a missing animation blueprint reference. We'll fix that in a second. The UI works. So let's go into characters, equipment character. You can see he's T-posed. So we'll just update that to third person anim blueprint. It must have got wiped when we were replacing references earlier. So we'll give it another quick test. Perfect. Okay, so let's go into items and blueprints. We'll open up the armor bladed shoulders, compile and save. You'll see the static mesh is there, but it's not updating the thumbnail. So click on the static mesh and then hit compile and save and it updates. Again, it's just something weird with Unreal. Drop it into the level here. Now let's go into blueprints, usables. Let's drop loot hero in. So we have some items to test. We'll just hit play. Kill these zombies, get them out of the way. Let's go and loot the corpse. Okay, everything seems to be working. We'll go pick up the little shoulder. Perfect. So now we'll work on the cleanup here. Let's move the maps. So for the maps, the inventory example map isn't going to work because it doesn't have a nav mesh for click to move, but we're just going to move it anyways. Go into materials. We use a different post-process outline than the inventory system uses, but we're going to move the old one just in case you want to use that one instead. If we go into sounds, environments, we don't need these door sounds because we already have them, so we can just delete them. They aren't referenced to anything. And now we'll go ahead and close. We're going to delete the intermediate and save folder. And then we'll go into the content folder and delete the inventory system folder because we've moved everything we needed. Let's relaunch the project. So you're going to see a few errors. These are very easy to fix. You just simply have to load these assets, recompile them, and save them. So we'll go through the list here and recompile world actor. As you can see, when you open them, there are no errors. It's just a little reference issue here. So we'll do the same in container, NPC, go into loot hero. Again, your list may be different. You may not even see this. Who knows? Okay, that looks like all of them. Now let's go into the armor cardboard boots. And you can see now it's actually reset the static mesh to the null mesh. So you'll just have to go through and update these to what you want the icon to look like. Compile and save. We're not going to do it in this video here. You can do it for the remainder yourselves. Okay, let's give it one final test. Looks like everything's all cleaned up. Okay, you can still attack while you have the container open. Let's equip some items. Drop some items on the ground. Pick it up. Kill the zombie. Okay, everything's done.